For centuries, the image of Jesus Christ has been a staple in art and popular culture. His visage has been immortalized in countless paintings, sculptures, and icons, becoming a symbol recognized worldwide. We often picture him with flowing long hair, a neatly trimmed beard, and pale skin. This image is so pervasive that it has become almost synonymous with the very idea of Jesus. However, this depiction, while deeply ingrained in our minds, is likely far from the truth. The traditional image we hold dear is more a product of artistic interpretation than historical accuracy. Historical and scholarly research suggests a drastically different appearance, one more consistent with the time and place where Jesus lived. Scholars have used various methods, including forensic anthropology and historical texts, to reconstruct a more accurate image. This essay delves into the historical evidence to reveal what Jesus may have truly looked like. By examining archaeological findings and ancient manuscripts, we can piece together a more authentic representation. We will challenge common misconceptions, drawing upon expert opinions and archaeological insights. These experts have dedicated their lives to uncovering the truths hidden in history, providing us with a clearer picture. Prepare to discover a Jesus who looks less like the figures in Renaissance paintings and more like the people of his own time. Imagine a man with darker skin, shorter hair, and features typical of a Middle Eastern individual from the 1st century. It's time to separate fact from fiction and see Jesus through a historically accurate lens. Modern recreations based on historical data offer a stark contrast to the familiar images we know. Let's embark on a journey to uncover the real face of Jesus. By visiting historical sites in Israel and examining ancient portraits or busts, we can gain a deeper understanding of his true appearance and the cultural context of his time. One of the most persistent misconceptions about Jesus' appearance is his long hair and beard. This image has been deeply ingrained in popular culture and religious art for centuries, shaping our collective imagination. This image, prevalent in Western art, is not supported by historical evidence. Artists from the Renaissance to the modern era have depicted Jesus with flowing locks and a full beard, but these representations are more reflective of the artist's own cultural contexts than historical reality. In fact, Jewish men of Jesus' time and place typically wore their hair short and well-combed. Grooming was an important aspect of daily life, and men took care to maintain a neat appearance. The Bible itself offers clues to this. While it doesn't provide a detailed description of Jesus' appearance, it does offer insights into the grooming norms of the period. The Apostle Paul, in his letter to the Corinthians, states that it is disgraceful for a man to wear long hair. This statement reflects the prevailing attitudes towards male grooming in the early Christian communities. Given the cultural context and Paul's influence within early Christianity, it's highly unlikely Jesus would have worn his hair long. The early Christians were keen to distinguish themselves from other groups, and adhering to contemporary grooming standards was one way to do so. Similarly, while beards were customary, they were usually kept short and trimmed. A well-groomed beard was a sign of respectability and adherence to social norms. A long, unkempt beard was often associated with mourning or religious asceticism, neither of which aligns with Jesus' ministry and message. Jesus' teachings focused on life, hope, and community, rather than the solitary practices of ascetics. The historical Jesus likely sported a short beard, reflecting the grooming practices of his contemporaries. This aligns with the archaeological findings and historical records that show grooming tools were commonly used by men of that era to maintain their appearance. Another area where artistic representations often diverge from reality is Jesus' complexion. He is frequently depicted with pale skin, a feature more common in Northern European populations. However, Jesus lived in Galilee, a region in ancient Judea, where the climate and genetics favored darker skin tones. Based on his ethnicity and geographical location, Jesus likely had olive or brown skin, a common characteristic among Jewish people of the time. His eyes were likely brown, a prevalent eye color in the region, and his hair, as previously discussed, would have been short and likely curly. These physical characteristics would have made Jesus blend in seamlessly with the crowds he preached to. He was not an imposing, otherworldly figure, but a man of his time and place. Jesus is often portrayed as a slender, even frail figure in art. However, his upbringing and lifestyle suggest a different physique. Jesus grew up in Nazareth, where he likely learned carpentry from his father, Joseph. Carpentry in ancient Judea was physically demanding work. It involved shaping and joining wood using hand tools, requiring considerable upper body strength and stamina. Jesus, as a carpenter, would have developed a lean and muscular build from years of manual labor. His ministry also involved extensive travel, mostly on foot, throughout the hilly terrain of Judea. This physically demanding lifestyle further suggests that Jesus was likely fit and robust, far from the delicate figure often portrayed in art. Section 5. Dressed for the times, Jesus' attire. The clothing Jesus wore would have been typical of a Jewish man of his social standing in first-century Judea. His attire was not only a reflection of his social status, but also of the cultural and religious norms of the time. He likely wore a simple tunic made of linen or wool, reaching his knees or ankles. This tunic, known as a chiton, was a common garment for men and was often made from natural fibers that were readily available. Underneath the tunic, he would have worn a loincloth. This undergarment provided an additional layer of modesty, and was a standard piece of clothing for men during that era. A rectangular shawl or mantle, known as a tallit, was a common outer garment. The tallit was often made of wool and could be quite large, serving multiple purposes. This could be draped over the shoulders or wrapped around the body for warmth. The tallit was not only functional but also held religious significance, often featuring fringes or tassels known as tzitzit. Jesus likely wore sandals, the standard footwear of the time. These sandals were typically made of leather and were designed to protect the feet while allowing for ventilation in the hot, arid climate. And his head may have been covered with a simple cloth tied around the forehead, known as a keffiyeh. This head covering provided protection from the sun and was a practical accessory for daily life. His clothing would have been practical and functional, reflecting the simple lifestyle he espoused. The materials and designs were chosen for their durability and comfort, suitable for the daily activities and travel that were part of his ministry. It's important to note that depictions of Jesus in elaborate robes are purely artistic interpretations and not historically accurate. These artistic renditions often reflect the cultural and artistic norms of the periods in which they were created, rather than the historical reality of Jesus' time. Section 6. Expert Insights. Unveiling the Historical Jesus. Numerous scholars and historians have dedicated their careers to uncovering the historical Jesus, piecing together evidence from biblical texts, archaeological findings, and cultural context. Dr. Joan Taylor, professor of Christian origins and Second Temple Judaism at King's College London, notes that the default image of Jesus is a cultural construct rather than a historically accurate representation. She emphasizes that Jesus was a Jewish man living in Galilee in the 1st century, and his appearance would have reflected that. Similarly, Dr. Goodacre, professor of religious studies at Duke University, highlights the importance of understanding the cultural context when imagining Jesus' appearance. He states that we need to move away from the idealized images of Jesus and try to see him as he really was, a man of his time and place. Section 7. Cultural Bias in Depictions. The way Jesus has been depicted throughout history often says more about the artists and their cultural context than about the historical Jesus. For instance, during the Renaissance, artists often portrayed Jesus with European features and attire, reflecting the dominant culture of the time. Similarly, in many parts of the world, Jesus is depicted with features that resonate with the local population. This adaptation, while aimed at making Jesus more relatable, further obscures his true historical appearance. It's crucial to recognize these cultural biases and strive for a more accurate representation based on historical evidence. Understanding the historical Jesus, including his appearance, requires us to look beyond our own cultural lenses. Section 8. Beyond the Image, Understanding Jesus. While knowing what Jesus may have truly looked like is fascinating, it's essential to remember that his physical appearance is secondary to his teachings and message. Jesus' impact on history stems from his radical message of love, compassion, and social justice, not from his physical attributes. Focusing solely on Jesus' appearance risks reducing him to a mere historical figure, overlooking the profound spiritual and ethical dimensions of his life and teachings. It's his message, his actions, and his impact on humanity that continue to resonate with billions of people worldwide. Understanding the historical Jesus, including his likely appearance, can help us connect with him on a more human level, but it's ultimately his message that holds the power to transform lives. Section 9. Conclusion. The importance of historical accuracy. By challenging traditional imagery and exploring the historical evidence, we can begin to paint a more accurate picture of what Jesus may have looked like. He emerges as a man of his time and place, a Jewish carpenter from Galilee, with features and attire typical of his social standing. While knowing his true appearance doesn't change the essence of his teachings, it does challenge us to confront our own biases and seek a deeper understanding of Jesus within his historical context. Ultimately, it's through his message of love, compassion, and justice that Jesus continues to inspire and challenge us today.